It is the Just Start the Conversation podcast. It feels like I've said that already. Brought to you by St. Luke's University Health Network with hosts Jody, McCloud, Missmer, and Amie, Allanson, Dundon. Ladies, very good to be back with you guys again. We're already off to fun and shenanigans in 2022, which is a good way to kickstart things.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to both of you as well. So we left off in our last conversation in 2020, way back in 2021, talking about getting into 2022 and kind of setting yourself up for success. And I think one of the things I've loved about our conversation so far is a lot of what we've talked about in terms of feelings and maybe improving how you're feeling. We haven't been discussing moving mountains. They've really been just kind of maybe little subtle kind of differences that we can make in our schedule, in our activities, in different ways that we approach things that can kind of set us up to just feel a little better. And certainly that's one of the good things about the new year. Say what you want about New Year's resolutions, or you see all those memes out there that say, hey, it's 2 weeks. How's the diet going? All that stuff. No, we are a cup half full positive podcast around here. And so we want to talk about things that can kind of set ourselves up for good intentions and good things in 2022. So ladies, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to both of you. By the way, both looking like 2022 is off to a brilliant start for both of you.
It is. It's 2022, New Year.
Yeah, I think we're about to find out. Well, it's funny. Some people set resolutions and some people don't.
Right.
And I'm wondering, and I know Amie's going to, as she talked about in the last podcast, she's going to get into a little bit of compulsivity and those pieces. And I'm very curious because I don't think that I fit into a type A. I think of myself as type B. You can tell Amie's already done that full analysis, but I do think that there are certain times when people set resolutions, when other people plan, and some people set goals. And I'm wondering from your perspective, Amie, if there is a differentiation between someone who sets a resolution, someone who plans, and someone who has goals? Or is it semantics?
I think it's semantics. I think the thing that makes them different is the zest with which we carry them out. So
The zest.
So for example,
It's my word for January.
it's your word for January, zest. So I look at it a few ways, right? So if somebody has, we like to throw around, oh, I'm type A or he's type A or whatever. Well, what does that mean, right? Because personality traits and personality disorders certainly.
Did you see she sort of referenced this?
I did not.
Well, I do have to, in fairness, say, Jody, when you mentioned that you're not type A, the smirk that you got on your own face as you were trying to say that, there is a video version of this podcast to be seen. So I'm just saying, pot, kettle, continue.
Okay.
Gotcha.
Thanks, Crockett. So we have type A and we have compulsive personality.
Okay.
And I think how we carry out goals, how we carry out whatever we're going to call them, resolutions, has a lot to do with our personality type.
So wait, so you're saying resolution, goal?
Same, yeah,
Tomato,
semantics.
tomato.
Okay, I think.
Okay.
I mean, some might argue, but why make things more complicated? Life is
No. The reason
complicated
why I'm
enough.
saying that is because the reason why I'm asking that is because if it's the same, or if it can be reframed, instead of calling it a resolution, calling it a goal, that feels different to me. That's why I asked.
You feel like calling it a goal would help you actually do it. A resolution isn't quite as strong.
I think resolution sounds like it's something you do once a year at the beginning of a new year.
Okay.
And a goal is something that you can set and maybe not quite achieve and then reset and re-achieve, where I think resolution is more concrete.
Okay.
And only one time. You get one shot. And if you don't do it, you fail.
I can only make a resolution the first week of January.
That's right.
And if it's not done by
then
golly,
it's not a resolution anymore.
Okay.
You failed.
All right. Okay. So,
Well, no, I think I can jump in here in the middle of what Jody's getting at, and that I think a resolution, I think especially this whole idea of the new year and setting a tone for yourself for the whole year, that maybe you are a little bit loftier with, say, a resolution versus a goal in the beginning of the year, because you're like, by the time 2022 ends, I'm going to be here with whatever that personal resolution is, where a goal is just like, Yeah, I kind of get what you're saying, Jody, where a goal is like, you know what, I'm not going to pick up snack foods this week. And then you can kind of, it feels like a little more attainable, where a resolution, I think just because of that whole new year feel, like the commitment to it does feel like it runs a little deeper.
So I'm already feeling this come from this side of the room of saying that, well, that's not healthy, right? Like, I think that what I would expect from our other conversation, when I'm learning, I love the look. What I'm learning through our conversation.
Well, there's been some looks in this episode so far.
It's early too. What I'm learning throughout the last couple of podcasts from you, Amie, is that we shouldn't be putting things into one concrete bucket because there needs to be flexibility. So the fact that I feel the need to, even in the very beginning, you haven't even gotten into the meat of the conversation, right. That like I feel the need to differentiate resolution and goal. And hearing what Crockett just said, I can feel you kind of getting into position to say, hold up.
Well, right, because the fact that you feel the need to define the difference between goal and resolution leads me into type A.
Oh, okay.
So, and I'll tell you what I mean about that. So, folks that do have a type A personality trait, not a disorder, just traits, we all have them, it's life. It's really about impatience. Like I need to get I'm not good at waiting around for things to happen that I need to have happen.
I'll be over
here. I'm very achievement oriented. Okay. It's about, is it a goal or is it a resolution? I have to know so I can achieve the right one.
Mm-hmm,
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And we're very competitive, us type A people.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I know, you know, we both are.
I am.
Domineering can be.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay. I feel like we're doing a study on Jody right now, but
know.
I'm just talking about type A.
I can be.
So really, the American Psychological Association defines it as excessive patterns of behavior, right? So, and behaviors and emotions. Excessive emphasis on competition. Can be some aggression, like we talked about. Overly ambitious. They can have stress-related health problems. Okay, we know that.
I'm watching my own territory here. You ladies are figuring a lot out about each other today so far.
So sometimes with people with type A personality traits, we see high blood pressure. We see sometimes people might refer to folks with type A as having a short fuse. Mm-hmm. Hypertension, right? We often see with folks that are type A. It's just that very overly ambitious, domineering, competitive. I'm impatient. I just need it to get done.
Okay. Yes to all of that. 100%. All of it. Domineering, aggressive, the whole thing. So I'm going to go back to a conversation. If you remember, Crockett, you had talked about someone in your life who plans. Is that a way that individuals who have type A control their emotion, or is the planning piece a part of being type A? And I asked that question because I'm a poor planner. Mm-hmm. So I'm guessing that and you said this, the behaviors and the emotions are two different elements of the personality, or?
Right, but they're both excessive.
Okay.
Right.
Gotcha.
So yeah, some people do self-control, right? Their type A traits by being overly organized, having 3 calendars and color coding, and that's very, very helpful. And it's a really good way for people that that have type A traits to feel like they have some control. But that starts to slide more into compulsive personality traits. And so let me talk about that, and I'll tell you kind of how I'm thinking about this, right? So people with compulsive personality really have an exaggerated sense of responsibility and an excessive need for perfection. right? So that's the difference. So it's responsibility and perfection for compulsive, whereas it's competition and patience for type A. So people with traits of compulsive personality are almost incapable of relaxing, and usually have kind of a humorless air about them. Okay, so
She just called you not funny.
so because they can't relax. They have a very difficult time taking the deep breath, toning it down, and just being.
So I'm guessing too, they could come off as cold.
Oh yeah, these are the folks that hold themselves and everybody around them to very high standards.
Okay.
Um,
I'm type A. Now I can say
Right.
that I'm not compulsive.
Right.
Okay.
so
gotcha.
so I want. That's why I think it's in
Hi, my name is Jody,
and I have type A personality traits. So, we hold ourselves and others to really lofty standards, which certainly comes across as, for the people around somebody with compulsive personality, it is hard. It is a really hard place to live. It's, we know that compulsive personality stuff really is caused by environmental and genetic, a combination of the both, right?
Yeah, because I would imagine that there's a part of the planning and a part of the compulsion is to control the environment, because maybe there was an experience where you didn't have control, or maybe there was, a bad outcome that kind of shaped you in that way.
Mm-hmm.
But then you said there's genetic pieces. But I know I've someone in my life who, the before going to bed at night. Oh, I just gave away who that is. Then there's all
before
the counters,
breakfast in the morning.
I know, right?
Okay, continue.
No, but the counters are all cleaned.
Mhm.
There are no dishes left in the sink. Everything is at least put into the dishwasher, so that when he gets up in the morning and comes downstairs, the slate is clean.
Right.
Same scenario where before the football game gets put on to watch, everything's cleaned up from dinner and everything's kind of put away and into its place. But I know that he's very honest. He's like, look, I can't relax if this is all a mess. This has to be done. But he doesn't expect me to do it. Thank God.
So I guess I'll ask this question then. So it sounds like maybe the phrase opposites attract is obviously thrown around a lot in any relationship, really, but certainly relationships with your significant other. Listen, there could be some situations where the behaviors that we've been discussing are great and certainly work for one person. Conversely, someone else might find that their maybe more laid back approach has them feeling less stressed, and maybe that is kind of their mode of going day by day. So how do we can't start saying one person's wrong and one person's right here, but certainly there could be some conflicts in those two different kinds of personalities. So I guess the question I'm trying to pose is, if you are type A, or you are compulsive, or you are maybe a little too competitive in those circumstances, or maybe in circumstances that might get competitive, all of a sudden you're finding yourselves holding grudges with one another, or going back to that time when this happened,
Mm-hmm.
So how do we kind of know when maybe either one of us is going too far in our own direction, and when one of us should know, as much as I want to pull you back to the middle, you still need to be yourself and I still need to be myself?
Yeah, I think self-awareness is key. And it's important to do kind of that personal inventory and say, where in my life am I pushing people away? And this is hard to do, but,
Sure.
What are the things that I do? How do I come across? How am I with other people? That do I notice people shying away from me? Or do I hear feedback from them that points to some hostility or them feeling maybe rigidly controlled. And if I can really, in a healthy way, soak in that feedback, then I can do something about it. Now, there's a lot about personality traits, compulsive, type A, and the million others that we could talk about that are really good. Like there's a lot of good in all of this stuff, but it's a matter of when am I going to the dark side in terms of
right, because you're right, because you're putting them in silos. You're going, okay, this, because that's not the whole person.
No,
you're
not at all.
Only type A, or not only
no,
compulsive,
but if we're talking about resolutions, the people that say, okay, I joined a gym, it's January 1st, I am every day at 2:00, I'm going to go do my 30 minutes on the treadmill, do my weights, and I'm going to do that faithfully every day for however many days I'm going to do them. And don't get in my way, because it's not going to be good.
Sure.
There's a...
Right, because there has to be flex in it. And I think, Crockett, that's what you were saying, is there has to be flex somewhere. And there's a realization of where you fit and what works for you, and certainly what works for your partner. So I think when you set goals and when you set resolutions, it sounds like, too, if you're in a relationship, that they probably shouldn't be independent of the other person's goals and resolutions, because we talked last year about getting kids to practices or getting them to events. Well, if you both set resolutions or goals that include the day that your child has to get somewhere, hopefully you had a conversation about what that's going to look like. So I think before you get into those situations, especially with someone who's type A or has some compulsive personality traits, that you're actually engaging in a conversation about what the plan is. What's your plan for this upcoming year? What's important to you? What are you going to resolve to do? Because I think we need to talk about it, because, hey, Jody, you're a type A person. Hey, person who lives in my house, you're a compulsive person. We might want to have that.
This sounds like a sitcom. So I guess, to come back to our original thought process with this episode, when we were talking about 2022. How can we, knowing all these factors, knowing the significant people in our lives, maybe self-awareness, as you mentioned, Amie, is key in this. How can we go about setting ourselves up for success in some of these areas as we get into the new year?
So I think Jody led in to that really well by saying, if you have a partner or you have someone you live with or a child that you're living your life with day to day, your goals and your resolutions should be made for yourself, but with the awareness of our partners. And the lovely thing about that is that as I'm doing my goals and writing my lists, and I'm having a discussion with my significant other, and he or she is doing their list, it might actually help us gain some insight and some self-awareness from that other person, to say, you really want to set that goal again? You've done it 4 years in a row. It's never happened, and you just beat yourself up.
Well, and I think, too, it allows the other person to provide encouragement along the way, or provide, some sort of assistance or awareness or those elements to kind of tap you on the shoulder at times and say, wait, we talked about this, and I'm pretty sure this is the direction you want to go in, if that was the goal. I mean, you have to be open to hearing that, which sometimes.
If you may not be in a healthy relationship where you're free to do that. So you have to know whether you're in a safe space to be able to do that. If you are, I think, Crockett, you with little kids, I think it's certainly, your 5-year-old could do goals this year with you and mom, and say, what's your goal, kiddo? What's one thing that you want to change or do or be by the end of this year? What's one thing on your bucket list that you
Disney princess?
Right.
Yeah, that's in my brain. I'm going unicorn princess, princess,
right.
Maybe a unicorn princess, as a matter of fact, all together in one.
There you go.
Right. But so that she feels included. And then if you're not at karate because you're taking a 30-minute walk, she's going to be able to say, oh, that's right, Dad's doing his goal. Okay. So if we include the whole family, there's so much more understanding and kids really start to get the idea that it's okay. It's important to do things for myself. My dad's doing things for himself.
And you know what? That's such a great point, because coming out of the holidays, for someone who we all live with people who have likes and dislikes. But if we know people have certain goals, we want to do anything we can to support them. I think the more people who are aware of your goal and aware of your resolution, they're going to do things to help support that. And this may seem very benign, but I don't eat meat. And so people who know that, I don't expect people to make me a whole different meal, but it feels very different when you sit down and people are already aware, because they're not passing you the meatballs and everything. They're like, oh yeah, that's right. It just becomes very natural. So I think if you share the resolutions, I think a lot of people keep their resolutions fairly private. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't know that.
Yeah.
It's a very,
I don't know that it is either, but I think, Jody and I work very closely together. And so, I may say to her, Jody, this year I'm going to eat salad for lunch. So I'm going to ask her to help keep me to that. And so if somebody,
if I'm ordering out, I'm not going to say, hey, you want a cheeseburger?
Right. Because I would be like,
Yeah.
I do.
But if I make somebody aware of, okay, I'm really going to try to eat healthier this year.
No.
And then I know that she's going to make choices for me, or I'm going to make choices for her that are congruent with our.
Yeah, I think that's probably like the nugget that comes out of this episode really is to share them, to create them, to support one another with them, despite your personality trait, because it allows you to help that person be successful. I think it allows you to pay attention to what you set your goal to be. And I'll bet most of the listeners don't sit down together as a family. I can tell you, I never did that with my children. I never did that.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't. I guess being a therapist is just something that, I just do because I want them to. I want him. I have a 22-year-old.
Carry the 7, divide by 5.
Carry the 7, divide by 4.
There we go. Yeah.
Right. And I want to know what his goals are. I've always wanted that, and he's known what mine are, so that. At a 2.5 hour football practice when he was in midgets, he knew the moms went on a walk. We walked. That was our exercise time. Right. Quite frankly, I think he was probably happy we did that and we weren't standing there being moms. But my point is, people you trust, safe people, let them in on your goals and your resolutions, and the traits that they have that you admire. How can you soak some of that in for yourself? Make that be a goal and say, maybe I like the way my partner cleans the counters and does the dishes. And maybe once a week, I'm going to surprise him and do that before he does it.
We're gonna hold on that and talk about that in the future. Maybe not. Well, no. And so here, I do want to say this because I think that there's something to be said for, and Crockett, you sort of went in this direction. Yeah, it would be great if I do clean the counters, everyone. I think it's important to note that I do clean the counters. But I think for someone who has some compulsive traits, as a partner, we have to recognize that sometimes they need to do those things for themselves.
That's how it's the energy they need to release to help them feel good. So rather than get upset that they're up and cleaning again, note that's how they do their thing.
Right? I've done that. Like, I've made the bed. I don't make the bed anymore. And people would say, oh my gosh, you don't make your bed? No, I don't make my bed anymore because I've already tried to be nice and make the bed. And then I'll come into the bedroom and guess what? The bed is being remade. And I used to get like, I can't believe and now I'm like, it's what you need to do.
Right.
You do you.
Right.
Yeah.
Perfect example.
I have to let go of the competitiveness that I can make the bed better than you can make it because you need to make the bed.
Right. Right. And speaking of,
that's picking your battles, right?
It is picking your battles.
I'm going to let you pick the road. It
is picking your battles. And I think there's something to be said for watching somebody who has some compulsive personality traits do things in an organized manner, especially for those of us that are type A and we're so competitive. And it's like, well, I made it already. Mine was good. Yours isn't better. And it's that thought. Right. And I'm the same way. Right. And even in the kitchen, I'm going to out you now. Last year, you had a few kitchen accidents, right? because you were overly ambitious and impatient.
Yes.
Right.
Yes, I did.
And chopping onions became chopping fingers.
Mm-hmm.
And that happened multiple times for Jody last year. So, right. So Michael, her partner, sorry, Michael, I just outed you, but he would, my guess is when he cuts onions, it's done in a very focused, centered way.
Yes.
Yes. So it is interesting how, our choice to do things affects us, in many different ways.
Sure.
And it's important to say, okay, what can I take from him? What can he take from me? And how can we balance? So,
sure.
Yeah.
And I think one of the big things that we haven't talked about too much is that I think when you do lean into somebody else and you give a little bit of your own vulnerability to somebody else and say, this is something that I want to do. If your goal that you've set for yourself doesn't work out, you can call it a quote unquote failure if you want to, but there's somebody to be there and be like, hey, look, I understand the circumstances. You gave it your best shot. On the flip side, if you are successful and you do create a good habit, or you have done something for yourself that has really set you up for quote unquote success in 2022, doesn't that make the celebration so much sweeter when you've had somebody there to go along with you on the ride? So I think that's a good place to wrap it up here. I think the word, Amie, that you used earlier was trust. Find somebody that you can trust if it's not a significant other, someone that is close to you in your life. Perhaps, if it is something as simple as going for a walk every day for 30 minutes or whatever it might be, finding a neighbor, a friend, another family member, somebody that can just help you reach that goal, because I think the tea will be a little bit sweeter there for you at the end if you certainly have somebody to celebrate with you. I think that's a good spot to kickstart our 2022 season here with this podcast. It is the Just Start the Conversation podcast. It's brought to you by St. Luke's University Health Network. Jody, McCloud, Missmer, and Amie, Allanson, Dundon. I know we're going to have a guest for our next episode as we're getting ready to roll into Valentine's Day with the psychology of sex, love, and intimacy with our guest host, Lenore Jefford, a certified sex therapist, is going to be joining Amie for the next episode. So get your Valentine's Day eyebrows ready to go. Does this look good? Does this work?
Yeah, that's very good, Crockett.
Yeah, thank you. I'm a man of many talents. It's the Just Start the Conversation podcast, brought to you by St. Luke's University Health Network. Jody, McCloud, Missmer, Amie, Allanson, Dundon. Ladies, always a pleasure. Thank you so much, and a Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year.